Joined by the man that does it all. He watches them all, he scouts them all, Charles Power. Charles, thanks for joining us. New rankings coming out on this Monday. Some jumps for some of those players that are committed to Tennessee. We'll start with Tyree Weathersby. Tyree goes rocketing up into the 200, right around 170. What kind of take me through kind of what your overall thoughts are on the defensive lineman from Georgia?
Yeah, Tyree Weathersby is one who's kind of been on my radar for, dating back to, I guess, into the, in the off season. He's been on the radar as like a 4-star watch. And I think he's had a great beginning to his senior year. Obviously, kind of what put him on that cusp of earning 4-star status was just his, the physical traits. He's got really good length, good size, movement skills. And I think he had some room to improve just as a player. And I think we've seen a considerable jump early on in his senior year, just very disruptive, making a ton of plays behind the line of scrimmage. He's kind of, I could see him going a couple different ways. It might depend on his size in terms of his ultimate position and where he plays on the front for Tennessee. You could probably speak to that better than I can, Austin, but just the athleticism and just the ability to disrupt and make a ton of plays as a senior really jumped out to us when we were kind of going through and comparing the defensive linemen. It was just a really impressive start. And it was, I think he had the look of an ascending prospect, a guy with considerable upside going into his senior year. And I think he's taken that next jump as a player, or has shown signs of that through a couple games of his senior year.
He comes in at 157 in the On 300. 11 spots ahead of him is Nathan Laycock, who goes from outside all the way rocketing up the charts. He has been off to a monster start, had 5 touchdowns in one game just a few weeks ago, has been on a tear, and played on a team a year ago with another highly touted receiver. Now he's getting all the targets, and he's showing he can hold his own as an individual.
Yeah, for sure. I'd be hard pressed to find a receiver who's having a better senior year thus far than Nathan Laycock. I got his stats right here. Through 5 games, he's got 33 catches for 840 yards. That's 25 yards per catch and 13 touchdowns. He scored 13 touchdowns on 33 catches. So first off, the production's off the charts. And I think when you combine that with his just the stature and length. I mean, Austin, you've seen him, and I saw him, I think, in maybe February and then again in July. He is a really well put together receiver. He's probably close to 6'3", 200 pounds, really good length. His arms are over 33 inches. So he checks the boxes from a size perspective. Then you go and find out, okay, this guy ran a 10.88 100-meter in track, and combine that with the production. I think on paper, that is a really strong receiver prospect. And then you go to the subjective element, which is just watching him on video, and you see he's making plays in the ball. He's driving off the line in his routes. He's winning really at every phase of the field. And like you said, he's just had a lot more targets and opportunities to make plays. And I think we've seen just him become more and more confident as a player. Like when I saw him previously, you could see the tools and the traits, but I think there was just some room for improvement, and just in terms of the playmaking ability and finishing ability, and I think he's getting progressively better through this senior year. So I think he's really encouraged. I mean, he looks like a steal for Tennessee, and he made a huge jump. I think probably one of the biggest jumps of anybody in this rankings release, going from like an 87 rating, which is probably a mid to high 3-star receiver, well into the, top 200 overall. And it's difficult. Receivers typically a loaded position just because there's so many receiver prospects. It's difficult to make that big of a jump. So I think that just speaks to how good of a senior year he's having.
90 spots ahead of him, you'll find Caleb Herring coming in at 56. Caleb's a kid with super freakishly long arms, tall. The biggest thing he's got to do is get in that, college nutrition program, the college weight program, get the nutritionist handing him buckets of peanut butter every day and put on weight. But, has everything you're looking for in a guy that comes off the edge to play that Leo position.
Yeah, I think the main thing I was looking for Caleb Herring as a senior, like the physical, like the frame, the length, that's all been there. The athletic ability. I was just kind of looking for just increased physicality, ability to be active as a defender, and I think we're seeing that. I think he's progressing physically, and I think he's taken some steps as a player, as a senior, and he really plays all over their defense. He can play in space. He can cover the slot receiver, and you see him rush. And he projects. I think long term, like you said, Austin has that Leo outside pass rusher type. But yeah, I just thought he's shown some progression, and just with us moving him up, these rankings are really a long-term NFL draft pick type of projection, and it's really a 3 or 4 year down the line mindset that we kind of approach these with. And I just think from watching him as a senior and the progression he's made, it's kind of pointed to a really high upside. So yeah. And I'm looking forward to. I'm going to try to go see him this fall just to kind of get an eyeball on him, because he's one that wasn't on the national camp circuit, so there's a little bit of unknown just from our perspective in terms of seeing him. I know you've seen him, but I wanted to go kind of just get eyes on him and size him up. But everything he's shown so far is pretty encouraging.
Yeah, his brother was a bit underrated and has really shown well early on here in the first 3 games of his career. Caleb has much more upside than Elijah. If Caleb can learn to play with the mean disposition that Elijah plays with, then watch out, because Caleb's got everything you're looking for from a physicality standpoint, from a length, measurables. It's just about adding weight and probably playing a little meaner. When he does that, then watch out for Caleb Herring. One guy that is still stuck in that 3-star range, high 3-star, is Jalen Smith, linebacker at Grayson, a kid that's been super productive for one of the best high schools in the state of Georgia.
Yeah, Jalen Smith, and he moved up for us. We were going through these linebackers. We were going through each position. He was a guy who struck us just from watching his senior video so far and just assessing his senior season. That is now kind of on that 4-star cusp. He's 89 rating, which is the highest rating for a 3-star that you could have on the On3 scale. And yeah, he's had a great year so far. He's averaging 11.5 tackles per game, just hyper productive against strong competition at Grayson. I think the biggest thing with Jalen Smith that pops out, you can kind of see in the video here, is he just plays very fast. He IDs the plays, just highly instinctual. You can tell this is a guy who probably does a lot of film study and just triggers downhill very quickly and can play in space as well. He's not the biggest linebacker. He's not going to blow you away in terms of the just from a size and stature perspective, but I think he's highly instinctual. If you can kind of let him play clean and play in space, he's going to make a ton of plays for you in pursuit. You can see he's right there. He's just a very high effort level as well. So he's making a ton of plays so far. So he's one that we'll continue to track, throughout the fall. We have a couple more rankings releases before it's final. So and that's just kind of, I guess, to know that all this stuff is really fluid and on it, like what you do as a senior for us, for most prospects, especially the ones who aren't in national all-star games, is really the most important thing. So, we're tracking all these guys really closely. He's one we'll continue watching.
The bell cow in Tennessee's 2023 class is Nico Aliba. Nico is, one of the top players in the country. You've got him number 2, only behind Arch Manning. You watched him play a couple of weeks ago. I know the one thing that continues to stand out for most people is he doesn't have a whole lot in front of him blocking, so he's kind of running for his life a lot. But were you able to pick up on a night when he took some big shots from the opposing defense that makes you still believe that Nico's right there on the cusp of pushing Arch for that top spot and one of the top 5 players in the country?
Yeah, so I've seen Nico several times dating back to last summer. I actually saw him at Clemson's camp on June 1st, 2021. And so I've seen him a lot over the last couple of years. But this was my first chance to see him in the context of like a high school game. And Nico's, maybe compared to some other prospects, some other quarterbacks, his games aren't always streamed online. So it was highly informative just to see him in that in that setting. And I saw him at the OT 7-on-7 in the summer too, and that was just like just an outstanding performance. And he was the best player at that event. It was probably that might have been the most loaded offseason event that we've seen in a couple years. So that was notable. But so getting to see him on Friday night, I just kind of wanted to see, you know, the context of the game, you know, how he plays with the pass rush. And he definitely got a lot of pass rush, like you said. You know, seeing him just within his high school, the timing with the receivers. I think first off, and this should not surprise anybody, the arm talent is spectacular. Like just seeing him in warm-ups, he can do stuff with the football that a lot of these other top quarterbacks can't do. And I've seen all these guys in person over the past 6 months or so. So I think that was very helpful. In terms of the live game, you know, I think their team was a little overmatched. The defense they were playing against is pretty strong. You had Roderick Pleasant, who's a On3 DB. You know, several other FBS level prospects on that defense. So they had a challenge. I think to me, he showed a good bit of toughness in that game. He actually had a hit where he was kind of like late hit sliding, and his earring ripped his ear, and he only missed a couple plays. Like they put a bandage on it, came back in. But yeah, I mean, I think with Nico, there's still some area to develop in terms of, you know, playing in a high school 11-on-11 setting. I think, and I talked to him after the game. He kind of admitted, he's like, "Hey, I need to get the timing with my receivers down better, and things of that nature." But you know, the talent is readily apparent. I think the biggest thing we're watching with him just throughout the rest of senior year is just how he progresses. He hasn't played a ton of varsity, you know, football yet. I think this was probably his like 15th start or something like that. Yeah. So yeah, I think the biggest thing with him and a lot of these other quarterbacks is just those banked reps of experience. And I think as he continues to play as a senior, we're really interested just to see how he progresses on that front. But there's no question he is hyper talented for sure.
Nico, on a bye week this week, should be in town for the Florida game. One other player who will be in town for that Florida game is 5-star David Hobbs. And Hobbs is someone who continues to go shooting up the charts. He's now a 5-star with you, Charles, you know, and has had a monster start to his senior year. Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and then North Carolina's fighting as the home state school to stay in it. Had he made a decision a month and a half ago, it would have been the Tar Heels. And now it looks like he's destined to play football in the SEC, in my opinion. To me, this is a Tennessee-Alabama battle. Georgia, to me, is the third team fighting to get in the mix there. But he likes Tennessee. He's liked Tennessee for a long time. Alabama is someone he likes a ton, and they've made a huge impression on him the last few months. But a kid that continues to play well.
Yeah, no question. I think of the majority of these prospects that I've watched in high school games, and if I were to tell you the number of high school games I watched, you probably wouldn't believe me. It's been a lot over the last couple of weeks. I think David Hobbs has probably had just the performance that really like made me go, wow. You know, it was just I watched him the first week of the season. He was already a guy who was moving up for us, but just I think the progression he's made is just really kind of incredible. He was, I think, around maybe 245 coming out of high school basketball season. This guy, he was like an MVP for a state champion basketball team in North Carolina, and he has gained significant weight. I think he's up to around 270 now, and he can really run. I know Austin. I know you talked to him after Tennessee's camp. This is a guy who runs consistently. I don't think he's ever run under a 4.8 at a college camp. He was a 4.6, 4.7 guy. I think he ran 4.7 a couple times and was upset with that time. Didn't think it was his best time from what I heard. He did that at a couple camps, but he plays like that. This is a guy who plays tight end. He plays tight end in defensive line, and he can really go. I mean, you do not see 270 rolling downhill like this very often. So that's exciting just from an athletic standpoint. Then we got some verified measurables on him. He's close to 6'4", very long arms. And then you track him over his senior year, and you can kind of see the pieces coming together as a pass rusher. He has defensive end athleticism and really like a body that's probably going to be, I would imagine he's probably going to be like a 300-pounder.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So just really, really like exciting what he's shown so far. And I think he's getting better and better, man. Like it's a strong defensive line class, in my opinion. But his upside, and this is an upside ranking with him, his upside is as good as anybody in the cycle. Like we're really excited by him. And I thought, it was a discussion we had. Should we make him a 5-star now? And I think we just all kind of agree. Like we've seen enough through 4 or 5 games. I think his last game he had, I think maybe 3 sacks, scored a couple touchdowns. It was an overtime game. So he's just getting better and better. And I think he's one that I think everyone in the industry will continue to, I think will probably agree with us, or just at least at the minimum continue to move him up, because it's just really impressive what he's done so far. And this is a guy who's kind of taken off. I mean, I'm not even sure he was barely on the radar, like 6-7 months ago. He's one who's just really shot up. And I think that's in accord. Like you said, his recruiting, I think you're going to have all those SEC schools going after him. And I would not be surprised if he's rising up boards in terms of the rankings and just priority with those top programs.
Yeah, and his sister's a top flight basketball player as well. She's already gotten offers from Tennessee, UConn, a who's who of women's basketball programs across the country. Lastly, we'll get you out on this. Josh Heupel and his staff obviously have taken a program that was really in peril, when they took over, just with all the uncertainty, the doubt, and everything else. And that first 6 or 7 months, they were battling all these schools, talking about NCAA sanctions and 4 and 5 year bowl bans and all this stuff that they couldn't say, no, it's not going to happen, and using it against them. And they've somehow, here a year and a half later, got one of the better recruiting classes in the country, have got some big-time players, as we've just highlighted several of them, doing kind of our new rankings release debut stuff with you. What are your thoughts on this staff?
Yeah, I mean, I thought so. I thought Tennessee's class in 2022, last cycle, to me was one of the more underrated classes, in the country. I did a write-up on National Signing Day, and I thought they had, a class that the industry had rated probably lower. I think we at On3, if you just look at it kind of in aggregate, we were higher on it, and a lot of that had to do with players like James Pierce, Joshua Josephs, ones that we were just kind of higher on naturally. That's really how we do it. Like when we're doing these rankings, we're looking at the individual, and then you kind of go back and just around signing day, and you kind of see where they're ranked. I'm more focused on like the minutia than necessarily the big picture. But when I step back, I think you have to be really impressed with what they've done so far. So like that 22 class, and I think that's parlayed into 23. Like just doing this update as we're kind of filling everything out, several of these Tennessee commits rose up, and I think that's just a testament to the evaluations they're making. Like Nathan Laycock, that was a great evaluation by Tennessee. Tyree Weathersby, that was a great evaluation by Tennessee. And then I think you combine that with just the big, like a big win, like getting Nico, it all kind of just dovetails together, and it makes for a pretty strong recruiting class. So, and I think too, to me, with Heupel, he's going to have offense, right? So like that's going to be kind of baked in. That's his identity. That's kind of what he's known for. But I think they've really done really well on the defensive side of the ball, particularly the pass rushers. I like the types that they're recruiting there, like a Caleb Herring, James Pierce, Joshua Joseph. Those are potential game changers in the SEC once they kind of progress and continue to develop. But I think the upside is really like being able to create havoc off the edge when paired with an explosive offense fits really well. Because if you think about it, if you're Tennessee, Tennessee jumps on teams in the first quarter consistently. So it's like when you play with a lead, when you're building a football team and you're playing with a lead, you really want these athletic pass rushers who can pin their ears back and get after the passers, kind of like the Peyton Manning Indianapolis Colts teams. So I think the way they're putting their team together has impressed me. It's pretty smart. And when you pair that with the evaluations and then just the kind of the headliner recruiting wins, I think you have to be really pleased with what they've done so far if you're a Tennessee fan.
You've heard about the Bama bump. This is called the power push. As Tennessee's players go rocketing up the rankings. Charles Power, we appreciate you joining us, and we appreciate your insight on and kind of taking everybody and peeling back the curtain, letting them see the wizard, and letting them see how you guys try to to rank kids, project kids, and it's more of a long-term projection than the here and now. But Tennessee seeing some movement with some of their commitments on this Monday as Tyree Weathersby rockets up, Nathan Laycock, Caleb Herring, a nice showing from those guys, and nice evaluations from Josh Heupel and his staff.
For sure.